Welcome to New York's #2 sports show. We have some Ranger news, and I kind of teased it in last night's episode with Kaapo Kakko getting injured, and it didn't look so good. And sure enough, he has been placed on long-term injured reserve. The good news is this: it is not going to be a season ender. They haven't given a timeline for how long he'll be out. I'm guessing broad range, 1 to 3 months, just a guess, maybe 2 to 4, but I'll say maybe about 1 to 3. I think you won't see him for the rest of 2023. I think the earliest that you'll see him is sometime in January, more likely maybe February or March, would be, I think, a fair guess. So, again, feel bad for Kakko. It's been, there was a lot of promise. I think going into this season, he had a good training camp. He had a good preseason. He was on a line that you would have thought would have produced, with Kreider and Zibanejad, but it just didn't quite work out. And, so he hasn't really produced much offensively. Has 2 goals, 1 assist in 20 games. So it's been a rough year for Kakko, rough season, even though the Rangers have had a lot of success. So hoping that he, recovers from this. And again, like I said in the last episode, that this can be a fresh beginning. Put this all in the past, get healthy, turn the page, and with the way the Rangers are playing, still be in position to be a big contributor when it really counts. And it seems like this will be a season where don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but the Rangers will, at the worst, be in the playoff race. So Kakko on long-term IR. Also, Filip Chytil, he had been just on regular IR. He has now been sort of retroactively placed on long-term IR as well. Now, this is not anything to do with Filip Chytil new news. He continues to skate on his own. They're bringing him along slowly. There's been no setback. He's progressing. I don't know when we'll see him, and there's no real rush to bring him back. Although, with the Kakko injury, maybe it speeds up. Maybe it speeds up sort of just as a fan, the want to bring him back in there. But if I'm the Rangers, again, they should be very delicate with this. So Chytil, transactionally, is placed on long-term IR. Now, coming off of LTIR and being activated for tomorrow night's game versus the Red Wings is Adam Fox. And that's very exciting. Fox, he, ended up missing really the minimum. Fox ended up missing 10 games, and the Rangers, I think, went about 7-2-1. And I think that does sound about right, at least in terms of losses, because I think the 2 regulation losses were to Dallas and last night to Buffalo. And the 1 shootout loss was to Minnesota. So they really did a very nice job without him. And so now what that means, Connor Mackey never got in, but now Connor Mackey gets sent down to Hartford. And so, he is out of the mix, certainly for now. But the more of the impact is Zach Jones will be back to the regular healthy scratch. Now, I think that they'll try to get him in every so often, but let's remember, they really didn't. Before Fox got hurt, Jones he played 1 game, the second game of the year because Lindgren was injured. But, I think that it was getting to the point where they would have gotten Jones in, and likely for Schneider. But again, this is a good thing. The fact that now you can have Lindgren with Fox, of course, Miller, Trouba, and now Gustafsson moves down to play with Schneider. I think that it improves the whole defense. And so that's a good thing. But let's talk about the forwards, though, and the fallout of Kakko being out. So the forwards are in a tough spot. And so taking Kakko's spot, the Rangers have called up Jonny Brodzinski. So he, for now, will take the spot on that line. So it'll be Cooley, Bonino, and Brodzinski. So as far as I see it, the 3rd and 4th line, you could almost argue that the VZ, Goodrow, Pitlick line, that's kind of more of a 3rd line, honestly, than Cooley, Bonino, Brodzinski. So there's a very clear dividing line between the top 6 and the bottom 6 right now. Whereas when Kakko was on the 3rd line, I'm not even saying that that line was all that effective, but you could very clearly name it the third line. Now, like I said, I think that you kind of have either 2 third lines or 2 fourth lines, however you want to say it. Also called up is Adam Edström, who, if he ever does come in, will make his NHL debut. Edström looked pretty good in preseason. He's tall. He's like 6'8", was a Ranger draft pick in 2019. He's a right wing, left-handed shot. Actually, let me confirm that. Edström, yes, left-handed shot. Was a 6th round pick in 2019. This is his really first full season with the Hartford Wolfpack. Was with them a little bit last season, but now has been pretty good. He's got 7 goals in 18 games. He's a +6. Like, we'll see though. So right now, Edström and Jones will be the healthy scratches, and that's if. Like, Edström kind of plays like a Connor Mackey role right now, but I do think that his path to the lineup is maybe a little bit easier just because, like, again, like, it's not as if Jonny Brodzinski, for example, is like a definite staple to be in the lineup, but from a pecking order standpoint, he will get that first crack. And it's funny, Brodzinski offensively is great at the AHL. I think he has the most, like, he's like been like one of the top players in all of the AHL. So he's one of those classic, like, quadruple, like, to use a baseball term, like quadruple A, where excels in the minors, but then comes to the NHL, the NHL level, the top level, and has had a tough time sticking. So, I think that we'll see what happens, because he's going to get a chance, and he could probably kill some penalties. It looks like he'll be on power play too, and that's the thing too. The second power play unit in practice looks a lot different. So Fox goes back to the first power play unit. Gustafsson moves to power play 2. Keandre Miller is off for now. And, of course, you still have Lafreniere, you still have Wheeler. And they had Brodzinski and Vesey. So, obviously, Kakko gets hurt. But it looks like they also took Cooley off of that second unit. Again, this could all be preliminary, but just, seeing what they did in practice, usually that's an indicator of what you'll see in the game. So, a little bit of a different look that might happen. So, as much as Kakko was not performing, this is a loss. This definitely is. And it's going to be one that he'll be out for a while, but not out for the entire season. So that's the Ranger news for this team. But I also want to discuss briefly the fact that Patrick Kane has signed with the Detroit Red Wings. Now, this is not a surprise at this point. Kane, it's a 1-year deal. Reportedly will be $2.75 million cap hit. And makes sense. It's interesting from a Kane perspective. If you're a Blackhawk fan, it probably feels a little weird. Now, granted, the Red Wings they're not in the same division as the Blackhawks anymore. It's been that way now for almost 10 years. And not even in the same conference. So that Blackhawk-Red Wing rivalry is certainly not what it was, but it's probably just an interesting, from a Chicago fan standpoint, it's like, shit, like going to Detroit, can't love that, but I'm sure there's no real hard feelings there, but that has nothing to do with the Rangers. But yeah, for the Rangers, with Kane, I think that he wanted to return, but ultimately, I'm glad they're not going in that direction. And it's interesting that the news that with the Kakko injury, like, it all kind of interestingly goes hand in hand, where Kane, the right wing is really where the Rangers are weakest, and especially so now. Think about your right wing depth chart. You have Blake Wheeler, who really it does not belong in my opinion, doesn't belong in the top 6, but he's there, right? Alexis Lafreniere has been very good, but he is naturally a left wing. And then who else? Tyler Pitlick, who's really best served in the fourth line. You have guys that like Jimmy Vesey, you could move there. Jonny Brodzinski, you can move there, like, because there's some versatile guys that in a pinch, like Barclay Goodrow could play right wing, but you don't have, like, there's really, like, Blake Wheeler is like the only real natural right wing that they have on the roster. So, and I guess Tyler Pitlick as well. But yeah, Kane goes to the Red Wings. Rangers will not face him tomorrow night. He will not make his Red Wings debut until, I would think, probably earliest maybe next week. But, and for Kane, the point totals for him probably ended up not being terrible last year. And the one game that really, in a positive way, that stood out for Kane was game 2 against the Devils, where he really, I think it might have been a 3-point night. He had that really nice goal against Vitek Vanacek. But yeah, Kane's numbers for the Rangers ended up being, like, you look at the numbers and they're really not bad. 19 games, 5 goals, 7 assists, 12 points. And then in the playoffs, 7 games, 1 goal, 5 assists, 6 points. So as much as I don't think too fondly of the Kane experience with the Rangers, it wasn't horrible. And sadly, in that series versus the Devils, he was far from the worst player, but he wasn't really all that good. So I'm happy the jury wasn't tempted. I think that the cap certainly played a role in them not getting him, because the Rangers are going to be up against it, right? When Hedl and Kakko comes back, they are going to be very up against the cap. I don't know. I'm sure that they will try to make improvements and make trades, but they're going to have to be creative. And I do think that it's going to limit them from making a lot of trades. Now, look, there's 50% retention. I'm sure there'll be a lot of 50% retention type stuff. A guy that I think could return, which I'm indifferent on, but this guy I like a little bit more than Kane, is Tarasenko. Like, if Ottawa falls out of the race by the deadline, I could see a reunion there. Am I dying for it? No. But that one to me is a better fit than Kane. I don't think that would prove beneficial for this Ranger team. With the way they're playing, I don't think bringing him in here is what they need. I think that they should consider, I don't know, like a couple years ago, they kind of went to Frank Vetrano, who's really broken out with the Ducks this year. But, Vetrano and Kopp and sort of lesser names, but guys that fit key roles, going about it maybe that way. And even there's arguments to not even going about it in that form. So we'll see. But any thought of Kane coming to the Rangers, you can squash that, as he has signed with the Detroit Red Wings, who ironically enough are the Rangers' opponent tomorrow night. So again, Kakko, he'll be out for a while. I'm thinking it'll be a few months. And luckily, they have determined this is not a season-ending injury, which I feared was possible. So all in all, not terrible news. And excited for the return of Adam Fox tomorrow night. Philip Hedl goes from IR to LTIR. Again, just, really for cap-related reasons, to give them some more room. So the Rangers, it's been a next man up mentality, and that continues. So we'll see what happens, and wish Kaapo Kakko well in his recovery.